Okay, I think we are live. How's it going, guys? This is my old friend David. He went to the Kingdom Hall with me at one point, and this is JR. I've known him for a really long time. Not quite as long as David.
Howdy.
But anyway, so I figured we'd start out by hearing some religious stories. Oh, and also I need to talk about evolution at some point on the stream because it's been made clear to me that some of my subscribers don't believe that evolution is a fact. So we're going to address that at some point. So what do you think, David? You got any stories? You want to start with somebody else?
No, let's see. Most recently, I haven't been going to meetings for a decade, I guess. I never really got disfellowshipped or disassociated myself. I just kind of left. And my father, who hasn't met his grandkids yet, was going to come up and visit us recently. My wife, however, was disfellowshipped, and he, the day before he was going to be buying his tickets, or the day he was going to be buying his tickets, the week before he was going to come up, made it clear that he wouldn't share a meal with my wife because she was disfellowshipped, because he's still an active witness. So they didn't end up coming and visiting, but that was part of the shunning aspect that just still really doesn't make sense to me. One of the things I looked at was Peter. After Jesus denied him, or after Peter denied Jesus 3 times, days later, Jesus had a meal with him and then forgave him.
Right.
So that just wasn't part of that, Christ-like behavior that I've never really seen from the witnesses anyway. But
yeah, speaking of which, I actually did a video on shunning recently, and there were a few scriptures that I looked at because I was wondering, is shunning biblical? They
Right.
always throw out that, that scripture. What is it? It's 1 Corinthians 5:9-13 basically says, you shouldn't even eat with such a man that's
Right.
an adulterer and all that other shit. How do you
Which
argue
was the
with that?
basis of their whole argument. He literally had no problem coming and visiting, talking with Tara, hanging out with us for a while. It was literally just would not share a meal. I'm like, that's take away your biblical reasoning for that, and that's really just offensive.
Right?
Well, we had the exact same thing with Telltale's mom. We would offer to take her out to dinner. Like, he and I would be going to dinner, and we'd offer to take her, and she would say, "Oh, I can't go with him," and he would stay home because he's a nice person, and he would stay home and let her go have a nice meal.
And I still believed it a little bit at that time. I still wanted to. I don't know. I'd been disfellowshipped for a long time, but I still, for 2 years afterward, I still believed it, and it had a pretty strong hold on me. So, anyways,
I can tell you my turning point for leaving the Watchtower organization.
Yeah.
There was an elder. I had moved to Indiana. There was an elder that got on my MySpace page and printed it out. And oh man, I will always remember this because he came in and he was very serious and very concerned. And there was a couple buddies that were with him, and he starts talking about how I had Antichrist stuff on my MySpace page. I'm like, I have literally no idea what you're talking about. So he hands me the printout and shows it to me, and it was the Anarchist cookbook that he was talking about.
He had no idea what that was, obviously.
Yeah, but just the whole printing it out
awesome.
of my MySpace and things like that, that was...
They do that, man. They'll stalk you. They will get people to rat on you, and they'll follow you. I mean, Avery Gibbs. Oh, shit, man. I'm blowing myself.
I had literally never thought about leaving. I had questions, especially everybody told us that time was too complicated for our minds to understand. I'm like, no, it's not. I get that. But I'd never really thought about leaving before then. And at that point, it was this is just a bit much. The whole snooping.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Avery actually ratted me out to the elders. He was watching me at school and wow. telling people what I was doing, and it was crazy. But so anyway, they throw out that scripture, 1 Corinthians 5:19-13, where it says, you shouldn't even dine with such a man. But I was actually looking at the context of that, and I made a video about this recently, so you guys probably watched it. But for those of you who haven't, that's basically, that's a letter from Paul to the congregation, and it's saying you should shun people who don't believe it anymore or whatever, right? Well, as it turns out, in 2 Corinthians 2, 5 through 11, he apologizes for overstepping his bounds by telling people to shun others and retracts the message from 1 Corinthians. Not to mention the Pharisees. That's where it started in the first place. The Pharisees were pro-shunning. So there's one bit in the Bible that is pro-shunning and then is retracted later, and they still do it. They do it because they know they can rope people in and keep them trapped. So anyways, yeah, that's a shitty story. So I guess your dad, he's not going to come then, right?
No, he didn't come. My wife called him an ass on Facebook. And despite none of my family being on Facebook, he messaged me within like 15 minutes about it. Like, how?
Really?
How are you on my disfellowshipped wife's Facebook page if you won't even share a meal with
that's
her?
Crazy. What did you say? Is that what you said to him, or?
No, it was just like, sorry, it got ugly.
Yeah, that's insane, man. So anyway, what about you, JR? You got any religious stories? You live near Amish people, don't you, or something like that?
That's true, I do. I live up here near Amish country in Ohio. That's about as much as I'm going to dox myself here, I guess. But I grew up Methodist, so that's pretty tame. In fact, when I figured out I was atheist even, I went to my minister and talked it over with her even, and she was pretty cool with it, actually.
Right? So you told her you were atheist then?
Right, and I had no problems or qualms doing that, and I'm still friends with her on Facebook, I think, but she's older and she doesn't use it much anymore, I don't think.
Right?
Not as well as she.
You lucked out. Shit.
But yeah, Methodists in general tend to be a lot tamer in this regard.
Yeah.
So I don't have anything terribly crazy like you guys do, except that the only thing she was like, try to keep it open mind, that sort of thing. Very reasonable about it. So nothing bad there at all.
Right. That's pretty cool. Yeah, I go to a Methodist church now sometimes. The family that has de facto adopted me, my ex's family, Alpha Four Zero's grandparents, they're Methodist, and they don't actually know I'm atheist. I don't know how they'd react if they knew that. I don't think they would react particularly well, so I'm just keeping it quiet. But either way,
they're super old, and it would be very annoying.
Yeah, it would be.
My grandma's the same way, and I haven't told her because it's not really any of her business, in my opinion. But
right,
grandmas.
I still hate to have to hide things like huge character traits about me. I hate to have to hide that stuff, and it would be even worse if I were young and my parents were the ones I was hiding it from. Speaking of which, there's a question somebody asked me I wanted to address real quick. They couldn't be on the stream because they're going to a meeting right now. And and they're 13, I think. So their question was, how do I leave even though I'm only 13? Any advice? My aunt just got out a month or so ago, and I don't want my parents to think that that's the only reason I want to leave, because I look up to her and want to be like her, even though she's a bad example. So that's going to be a huge problem. The answer to that question is there's no easy answer to that question. You just have to pretend that you believe it. You have to pretend until you're old enough to get out. Really, because the second they think that it's, that you're doubting it, they will do everything they can to indoctrinate you and brainwash you.
And isolate you.
Yeah, that would be even worse until you are old enough to be out on your own. And that's not necessarily 18. I've heard people get kicked out at 15, 16. Out on their own with no friends or family or anybody. So Just be careful and pretend that you believe it for a while. That's the answer to it. Okay.
And try not to get baptized.
Yeah, don't get baptized. Avoid that at all costs, really. Oh, and here's something else. If you do get baptized and you're a little bit older, you're out on your own and you want to leave, here is how you do it. You have them switch your publisher's card to a congregation that you maybe visited one time in another state and just never show up. That's how you do it. Switch your publisher's card to another congregation in another state and never show up. They will not be able to stalk you anymore because they won't know where you are. So anyways, do we have any questions?
Not yet.
Not yet? Okay.
Not very many.
All right, throw me some questions, people.
Well, Flaming Unity says they've been shunned, but I don't know if they're actually serious.
Well,
But
they
I'm not
followed
sure.
that up with because I don't wear pants, so I'm gonna guess no.
I'm just
I don't wear
reading
pants either.
everything way back in the chat here as far as I've got. That's all.
Right. Okay. Well, for the moment, I
Someone
figured
said the
Where's
last
the guy?
days were declared in 1914. Armageddon is 103 years and counting.
Yeah, you know what? Actually, let me go over the second generation teaching because that's kind of interesting. That's confusing to a lot of people. So I've never gone over the second generation teaching on my channel. Basically, there's all right. So basically, everyone knows that they believe that Jesus came back in 1914 or whatever, right? So in 1914, Jesus comes back. In 1919, Jesus chose the Jehovah's Witnesses as their chosen organization or whatever. And then they said, we're in the end times. We're in the end. Armageddon will be literally any day, any 5 minutes now it's going to happen, right? Well, it hasn't happened. And they interpret this scripture in the Bible basically says that it's going to happen within the generation of the people that witnessed Jesus coming back. Well, 100 and something years and counting, right? So how do they get around that? It was supposed to be in this generation, in the generation of 1914, okay? Okay, here's where it gets a little bit complicated. So they have this overlapping generation teaching. It's basically where, so actually I have my screen up here. Let me just, have you guys ever heard the word contemporary? Contemporary.
Right.
The definition of contemporary is living or occurring at the same time. So woolly mammoths were contemporaries with the pyramids. In the same way, they're saying that any contemporaries of anybody alive during 1914 is the same generation. So they take this guy named Fred Franz. He was a governing body member. He got anointed in 1913, which is before 1914. So he dies in 1992. And that means that any contemporary of Fred Franz is the same generation, they're saying. Anybody anointed before Fred Franz died. So they just extended it. So they say it's going to be a short time from 1914. Here we are 100-something years later. So they extend it by saying it's contemporaries. Am I down? I'm not down, am I?
It's just me.
Okay. Anyways, so they extend it by saying it's contemporaries. They have a maximum of 30 years. What is it? I'm not down.
Sorry, I missed. Nope. Sorry, my settings are all goofed up.
No problem. Anyway,
It's just me.
so they extend it. I say they have a maximum of 30, 40 years before that second generation teaching has to change, before they run out of time again.
Well, but the thing is that completely removes the definition of the word generation, because then they can say, all right, well, anybody that was contemporary with that generation would also be the same generation, because they're the same generation as the 1992 people, and the 1992 people are the same as the 1914 guy. So generation
Yeah,
means nothing.
Altering the whole meaning of the word generation.
I was under the impression, or I guess my understanding of like the 1994 clarification there was that it was the mindset of that generation, not the physical bodies. So as long as there was the mindset of the people that wanted to continue doing the work, the preaching work, up
that's
until the
even
end
better.
time.
Yeah, that's interesting. I didn't realize. Well, anyway, it's a big, confusing mess, and it's only a matter of time before it all crumbles down. I mean, it's built on sand. So, hang on.
You want to get your water?
No, it's fine. Anyways, anyway, I wanted to touch on evolution a little bit because apparently a lot of my subscribers don't really believe in evolution.
So Telltale, if there are monkeys, how are we here?
Yeah.
That's my guy. I was about to say that same thing.
That's funny.
Why don't we have Tales, Telltale?
All right. We're already starting into these questions.
Well, I'm just asking them to get you started on evolution, that's all.
Yeah. All right. Well, basically, that question is, it doesn't mean anything. It's like asking if Australians and Americans came from British people, then why are there still British people? They're divergent lines. We all had a common ancestor at one point, and eventually, as time went on, those two lines split off from each other. And hang on, loud kids. Anyway. Those two lines split off from each other and grew apart. Monkeys are good at climbing trees and eating bananas, and we're good at doing math. We're good at separate things, and they don't need to turn into humans. We don't need to turn into monkeys. That's just not. It's a nonsensical question. So, well, let's see. I think modern humans are around 100,000, 150,000 years old, right? Millions of years ago, we had a common ancestor with modern apes. We are the fifth great ape. Eventually, what happened was, so every time we have children, every time there's reproduction of any kind, sexual or asexual reproduction, DNA duplicates itself. It makes redundant copies. So the genes that control your eye color.
Yeah.
Hang on. The genes that control your eye color are multiplied, and there are multiple copies of them. So genes that produce eye color, there are 2, 3, 4 copies of it in your DNA when you reproduce. And that's leaving genes open and free to mutate, which happens all the time. Mutations happen all the time. On average, there are 70 mutations in an average child that were not there before. 70 completely new genes that did not exist before. They control everything from your skin color to your eye color to the shape of your nose, to your fingers, to everything. And so anyways, these mutations occur. And in a population, any group of, or anybody that has an advantage over anybody else will tend to have more children. If they can have more children faster than the others, then they have an evolutionary advantage, right? So the ones that didn't have the advantageous mutation die off, and the ones that did have the advantageous mutation reproduce. That is how evolution works. That is gene duplication and mutations and natural selection all in one. That's how evolution works.
And I was also going to jump in here. That's why I stepped out for a second. I picked up a few books I got laying around here.
Yeah.
That anybody should read if they're interested in learning more about evolution. The first one here is The Ancestor's Tale by Richard Dawkins. All right. It walks you through. It gives you various timelines of how things worked and how they diverged and the various large points that explain visually in a very good way how things diverge from one another and how evolution flows throughout history and that sort of thing. Another one, more specific to humans, is the Atlas of Early Man.
Here, I'm switching to you. There you go.
All right. Well, yeah, people can see easier that way, I guess. And this book is also pretty neat. It's more anthropological, and it deals with some cultural anthropology, because I can't talk today,
Right.
and things like that, but it actually shows you how the humans split off from one another, and it gives you examples of ancient artwork and examples of different ways ancient civilizations diverged from one another. I know the book's going in front of the microphone a little bit. And
No,
it gives
it's
you
fine.
a breakdown of the different time periods in which humans existed and that sort of thing. So a
Interesting.
very good book to look at as well. I found it at a thrift store for $1, but you can also find it probably pretty easily in your library, you know.
See, isn't that a shame? Like, these books are $1 at a thrift store. I mean, granted, I do find programming books for like $1 at a thrift store every now and then, but
Oh yeah, that's
still.
where I actually found this one. And I think they sell it for $1 as well. They just happen to have it, the one I've been doing.
It's backwards. Missing what?
The Missing Dimension Insects. That's a series I've been doing for a little while now.
Oh, yeah. Okay, that's cool.
And, that one's more about the sexuality of humans and what's missing in it, and how a snake lied about sin, and that's how sin got created or something, and I don't know.
Right?
But it's really strange. So the other two books I
That is
recommend,
awesome.
The Greatest Show on Earth is pretty neat. Also, again, by Dawkins.
That is a
and-
good book.
And Origins, which is put out by Neil deGrasse Tyson and Donald Goldsmith, which gives you cosmic evolution and how the Big Bang happened and everything that's happened since it, in a very reasonably thin book with a reasonably decent print that won't take you forever to read, with a lot of pretty pictures.
That's pretty cool. Actually, yeah, I probably want to address this too. There are different types of evolution. Micro and macro are not different types. Those are not types differentiated between by scientists. But cosmic evolution, a biological evolution, stellar evolution, things like that, molecular, those are to some extent talked about in different circles. But something I wanted to touch on. Well, go ahead.
The only real difference between micro and macro evolution is the amount of time that you look at the species changing. I've heard some people say it's microevolution is within a species and macro is between lots of species.
Right.
But you can
That's
look at it
true.
as the difference between humans and apes diverging versus the different types of
Ring lizards.
wolves that we've created that are now Dalmatians and Chihuahuas and everything.
Right.
That would be more
Yeah.
like microevolution because they can all still breed together. Yeah,
Or the annual
is pretty
flu.
cool too.
What is it?
Or the annual flu.
Yeah, the annual flu. That is actually a prime example of evolution at work. I mean, there are mutations every year that change it enough that we have to keep up with the changes and make vaccines based on that. By the way, did we have a question?
Yeah. I don't know, how serious this person was, but he said, how often are the beneficial mutations?
How often are the beneficial mutations? Well, like I said, roughly on average, a human baby will be born with about 70 mutations, period.
Mm-hmm.
As far as beneficial mutations go, it's hard to tell. I don't know.
Also, it really depends on context.
Yeah, like what is beneficial? I mean, we don't know what's beneficial.
And what environment are they in? If they're in the Arctic, fur is going to help a lot more than, thick fur
We can look at the
on the
history
equator.
of, the history of our evolution. We can see when, blue eyes evolved about 7,000 years ago, for example, but is that beneficial? I don't know. I mean, it must have been at some point because it stuck around.
Well, as far as evolution goes, the only difference between beneficial and not beneficial is whether or not it is detrimental to creating the next generation.
Right.
So
That's
anything that
natural
is
selection.
benign is still like beneficial because it's not taking away from the reproduction.
Right.
Like nipples on men.
Yeah, that's vestigial.
Well-
it would cost more to get rid of them, right?
They're not entirely vestigial though, because men can produce milk
I heard
if
about
it's
that. Yeah.
necessary.
Oh,
But
you want
it's
to hear something
generally not
interesting? Let me tell you this. Jehovah's Witnesses had a magazine a while back. This is when I was still in it. David, tell me if you remember this. There was an article where they were talking about evolution and vestigial things, like things that were vestigial, which, by the way, vestigial means no longer needed but still around. For example, nips on a man.
Yeah, tailbones.
So, yeah, tailbones. That's good. That's another example. So anyway, so this article in the magazine said that this man on some island somewhere, not near civilization, his wife died and he had twins and they didn't have baby formula. They didn't have it in that area. So he had to lactate. He prayed to Jehovah and Jehovah made him lactate so that he could feed those babies. And see, just proof that male nipples are not a product of evolution. They are a product of God, just in case.
Right.
It's God's backup
Just in
policy.
case.
Do you remember that, David?
I don't remember that one. I guess
God.
as long as the guy didn't try to identify as a woman afterwards, he'd be okay in Jehovah's organization.
Right.
But,
Right? I know, that's a good point. I
it
hadn't
doesn't
considered that.
really
I
blow
guess
my
it's-
mind, but I don't recall it
Right?
specifically.
Well, it blew my mind. That's why I remember it specifically. I was like, holy shit. Anyway.
There was a pretty interesting question that I want to throw at you.
Okay.
Somebody said they've got two nieces that are 7 and 11, and they're being raised in a very religious household, and they want to know how they can introduce, skepticism to the children.
Skepticism. Introduce skepticism. I would.
Paraphrasing.
Yeah, I would start by just talking about science a little bit. See, I was just saying this the other day. Jehovah's Witnesses do what's called poisoning the well, where they'll send their kids into a school, and their kid's job is to say, "Oh, evolution's fake." No, even scientists don't believe it, and when next time the kids hear the word evolution, it's poisoned by default. They're like, oh, I thought nobody believed in that. So they'll be super suspicious. That's poisoning the well. It's a logical fallacy. So I'm not encouraging you to poison the well, but I'm saying open their minds to the idea of evolution and the Big Bang and things before anybody has a chance to close their minds to it. That would be a start, I would say, right?
Also, as long as you are not directly speaking about God and religion, parents are usually less likely to attack you and say, oh, stay away from my kids, don't tell them this kind of crap. If you're focusing on things that it's not directly, listen, baby, God's bullshit, you got to get rid of that. Parents are usually more open to allowing their children, to listen to scientific information.
Yeah, so I don't know though, because I was just talking to her grandma the other day, and I guess her grandma was a lot more open when she was little, but she's like a young Earth creationist.
She's gotten like more ridiculous as I've gotten older, I guess, as she's gotten older.
It's insane. So yeah, like I was just talking about dinosaurs, and she got all pissed off about dinosaurs and how God created them and the fossils are a hoax and all this other shit. I was like, what the hell happened to her? That's crazy.
I guess one thing that I might recommend when dealing in a situation like that is diversity also includes you respecting their opinion. So even though we don't agree with it, and there's a lot of things that we can prove wrong, you can't go in with that sort of mentality.
Right.
Even if you're doing something benign like introducing science, don't do it with the attitude of coercing them just to show them all the facts.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
sure.
definitely true.
Yeah, teaching them critical thinking is going to help a lot more than teaching them facts.
Yeah, like I was talking to Kylie, I'm sorry. God, Alpha Force Zero. I'm so bad at this.
Yeah, you're terrible.
Anyway, so
Wow.
anyway, I was talking to Alpha Force Zero, and I said that, you know, she blew the Santa conspiracy wide open. I talked about this last live stream, but eventually when that happened, I said, all right, so Santa's not real. Now, what else do you think might not be real? And she said, the Tooth Fairy. And I said, that's right. That's right. Tooth Fairy is not real. Anything else? And she's like, God. And I was like, you got it. That's it. So anyway, you know, just critical thinking skills. Critical thinking skills are number one.
I will say, now that I'm thinking about it, I've actually got a little bit of family who were almost Mormon for a little bit, and then they're fundamentalist Christians, and they homeschool their 4 kids, that kind of thing. And you can't approach it the same way as someone who's been to public school or has the other typical social experiences. So depending on how strict those parents are, even those parents are nice people, and they're still pretty open about most things. But if you bring up evolution or science or astronomy or things like that, then they just throw it right out the window.
Yeah.
Like, I accidentally mentioned Sagan to him once, and like, he's just a crazy guy.
Right.
You can't argue with it. You just have to, okay. They also didn't know what Vietnam was and the importance of why it was so bad. Like, we were
That's
playing a game of
insane.
apples to apples once, and we had a card that comes up. Everybody knows what that game is, I think. You draw a card and then you match it.
I don't know that, but
Oh, you have 2
But
decks.
she
And
does.
one of the decks has adjectives on it, or nouns, or verbs. And you try to throw down the thing closest to it, kind of like Cards Against Humanity.
okay,
For
yeah.
kids.
I know what that is.
But it's a family-friendly version of
Apples
that,
is for
basically.
kids, yeah.
Okay, all right, I've
And
got
they had
it.
a word
That's weird.
They had a word that basically meant bad, and everybody threw the stuff down, and I had the card that said Vietnam 1969. I just threw it, and they didn't understand why that was the worst one on the table. Like,
Really? That's
yeah, that
interesting.
kind of thing. So it's
That's
very
crazy.
odd when you get people that are that sheltered. No amount of introducing skepticism is going to help them if the parents
Right.
are around.
That's true. That's why you can only teach them critical thinking skills. That's the
Right.
best thing you can do, and just let them jump at the questions in their own time, on their own. That's the best you can do. By the way, somebody asked me if we were still streaming. They may. I don't know. They may join. I don't know. We'll see. Anyways.
Do we, you want to?
So there's another question here.
Oh yeah.
Let's see. Someone asks, how would you think I should fully come out as bisexual and agnostic to my parents? They're hardcore Catholics, and racist to my transgender boyfriend. I think they mean sexist, but you get the idea.
Right. Okay. So question is, how do you come out as bi and agnostic or atheist or whatever to your religious family? Is that what it was?
Basically.
Okay. Carefully and slowly and gently. I'm not against just not saying it at all. If you can manage to just hide it for the rest of your life, as sucky as that is, then do it. But if you can't, you just have to get it out. I understand. Just do it. There's no easier way than to just say it to them. Say it in as nice a way as possible. And if you're afraid of some kind of repercussions of some sort, then write them a letter or email them. I mean, say it when they're not around, and then send it to them. And then be prepared to never talk to them again if that's what's going to happen. I mean, it's a shame that people have to go through that. But anyways, David, you had a little coming out there story there, didn't you? Didn't you turn out gay or something like that?
Me?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, I'm just joking.
Like, I don't remember a couple of years there, but no, I don't think so, man.
Somebody says, where is Alpha Force Zero? Are you keeping her in the closet again?
I'll get her.
Hang on. I'll get her. Or she'll get her. She will get Alpha Force Zero.
Someone
Hang on
else
one
would like to
second.
know, why did it skip on me? Are any of you scholars?
Scholars. Well, that would depend on your definition of the word scholar. I'll address my qualifications in a minute. Hang on 1 second.
That's fine. I'm going back through the comments here because I'm not moderating very well because I didn't move fast enough. That's all right. There's nothing bad here.
Oh, you're good. Yeah, you're fine. Hang on.
Okay, squeeze. Go sit on Dad.
Yep, sit on him.
Oh my
Smother
gosh.
him.
Tall.
Here's Alpha Force Zero.
Right.
She's shy. And her hair is a little bit messed up. She's
It's
supposed to
very-
brush that a minute ago.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to tell you. I can't find my brush.
Okay, well, anyway, here's Alpha Force Zero. So, all right, go ahead.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Anyway, qualifications. I don't know. You guys can determine for yourself. I'll tell you what my qualifications are. I went to school for chemistry. I did not graduate that school, did not finish a chemistry degree, but I've been in the field of computer science for 6 years or something like that. And in this field, I'm considered a computer scientist with a master's degree. I mean, that's what it's viewed as. It's the equivalent. I take that for what you want, but I do know an awful lot about science and things like that. I don't think any of us have a special degree in the field, do we? Any three of us?
I have an associate's in science, but it's in alternative energies like wind and solar and stuff.
Okay.
So it's not really related.
Okay. Well, anyway, there you go. So the point behind that is we don't have qualifications to do original research in the field and act as an authority on these matters. Oh, hey.
Hello, you
Steve.
said.
Hi. Sorry.
What's
it took me a
up?
while.
Oh, it's okay.
No. All good.
So what's going on? Anything interesting?
Not too much. No, you know,
Okay.
just in case if you hear some weird barny noises in the background, it's just because I'm like part-time babysitting here.
Okay. Yeah, I am too,
Oh.
except it's my own kid, so I don't know if it's really called babysitting.
I would
But
call it babysitting. It's a job.
Okay.
To make sure that they don't die is clearly a job.
yeah, that is a job. So yeah, all right. So we're both babysitting, but
Yeah.
anyway, we're just talking about our qualifications. I'm not qualified to do original research in the field or make any specific claims of my own, I guess you could say, but anybody is qualified to understand material
And speak on it.
and speak on it. Yeah, but they are not qualified to act as an authority on it. So you should go look up everything that I say and that everybody else says on anything that we talk about here, just to verify for yourself, right? Because there's always more information that I'm not going to cover.
Well, not just that. We could all be lying to you, and you'd never know it if you don't look into it.
Right?
Do not
Yeah,
be a
that
mindless
is-
drone.
Rule number
would
one,
like-
go look things up.
Don't
This
put it on
is
automatic. Think.
it's not a solved problem by any means either. I mean, there's no documented, proven answer by any authority.
Yeah, that's true. What were you saying, Iseth?
No, what I mean is, it doesn't matter how much someone is actually qualified. Like, even if you have double, triple doctorate in some particular subject and you talk about that subject, you may still be wrong about it or you may still be lying about it.
Right.
I mean, sure,
That's
it's
true.
much more likely that you say the truth, but it doesn't mean that you're actually saying the truth.
That's true. That's an argument from authority fallacy, I think. Actually, there's an astronaut that claims that there are aliens or something that he saw on the moon or some nonsense. I don't know. Who knows? Maybe it's true, but I'm not going to believe him because he's an astronaut. Never take anybody's word for it. You
They
always
asked
need to
if you could turn ESET's.
research it. Oh, okay. Hang on. I don't know. Maybe. Let's see. Can I? Let's see. Dashboard. No, that's not the right button. I'm so bad at this. I don't know if I can.
You
turn
go over
her
here
mic
to
up or
the
not.
left-hand side. You go
Got
to
it.
the yeah.
Found it. Okay, say something, Seth.
Something.
Okay, perfect.
Okay.
By the way, can you tell me? I mean, I've talked to Logic about this, and I've talked to others, but how do you pronounce your name exactly?
The joke about the name is that it's unpronounceable. It's meant to be said wrong by everyone.
Oh, Yeah, I've come to expect something like that from you. That's messed up.
No, the reason that this is the running joke is because my actual name, my real name, is utterly unpronounceable for the vast majority of people. No matter where you go, people cannot pronounce it. Either my name or my surname. If they catch my name, they're lucky. Surname won't work that well. And so what happens is I figured, if I have like a super hyper, always different, complicated, username that no one really can pronounce, I'm set for a while.
Yeah, I get where you're coming from. For a minute there, you were saying your real name is utterly unpronounceable, and I thought you were telling us your real name for a second there. I was like, I was trying to form it out into like a name-like structure, like utterly unpronounceable. But anyway.
Yeah. No, I don't say my name, and I don't say it for a good reason.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah, I've doxed myself tonight though, so
I see.
I don't know. Yeah, by mistake.
Yeah. And there's the other side where I'm not 100% sure, but I may be the only person on the planet who has this mess up name. And so if I were to ever dox me, just like with name and surname, if I were to ever dox me, 100% you could find me. And that's
really
bad.
It's that unique. Wow, that sucks.
It might be that there are 2 people, maybe 3, but that's about it.
Right. Well, I guess I'm lucky in the sense that I'm going to dox myself just a little bit more, not that much more, just a little bit more. But I share the name of somebody very famous on a very big TV show.
Oh, yeah.
A gay person on a TV show. So anytime like an employer Googles me or anything like that, it just comes up with this asshole. So I guess I lucked out there. Anyways, let's see. Hang on. I'm looking through the chat here.
Oh, you want a question?
Yeah, go for it.
Several
Okay.
there, I think.
Yeah. My boyfriend is a JW, and his parents don't know that we've been dating for 3 years now. Should he tell them?
Okay. So your boyfriend's a Jehovah's Witness, and his parents don't know
That he's dating this girl.
Okay. Before I answer that, I just noticed something here. It says, is Isa from Russia? And I don't think that, I cannot answer for her, and I don't know if she wants to. So I'll let her mull that over while I answer this. Should you tell the parents? That was the question, right?
Depends on your age.
The Jehovah's Witness parents. Yeah, it does depend on your age a little bit. If you're like 14, 15, 16, be prepared to be prepared for him to be shunned by his family, no matter what. They will force him to break up with you or get disfellowshipped. I assume that you guys have been, doing it. I mean, I don't know that for a fact, but it's been 3 years. So, yeah,
Hey,
he's going to be disfellowshipped. Yeah, I guess, but he's going to be disfellowshipped if they find out. Do not tell them unless he's
okay with that.
Supporting himself and okay with that. Yeah. So anyway, any other questions?
Throw it to him. See if he's got any that he thought were interesting.
Somebody says, "Why are you anonymous?"
Why am I anonymous? Because I'm an ex-Jehovah's Witness. That seems like enough reason to me. Because I am closely associated with people who do not know that I'm an ex-Jehovah's Witness. Showing my face was risky. If these people saw my face on this channel, if my name actually got associated with like an apostate channel, I would be fired. I would be shunned. It would be ugly. That is why I'm anonymous.
Do you want to, what Isa?
Oh yeah, Isa, you there?
Oh yeah. What was that? No, I'm not Russian.
Okay, there you go.
I like to make jokes about it though. No, it's many people get that wrong because I really like to make jokes about it. Everyone says I'm Russian, and so sometimes I act very Russian. It's because it's very easy to be Russian when people don't know what Russian is supposed to sound like, but it doesn't mean I'm Russian.
Also, there are a lot of smaller countries. I mean, that whole area speaks in a sound that's very similar to a Russian accent.
You mean
so,
Slavic language, right?
Yeah, that.
Yeah.
That's what I meant. Yes.
Yeah. No, the Slavic language is very dominant. That means when you live, even if you live just a couple of years in a Slavic dominant country, and you are forced to either, really heavily speak with people that are English or speak their language, which, is Slavic. If you stay there long enough, you will adapt to their way of pronouncing things. Now, I had the issue because I was living in Poland, and I was moving there from, I think, Italy or Germany, either way. So for me, rolling the R is already easy, very, very easy, because I'm doing it constantly, and I was doing it when I was in Italy and so on. And so what happened was I had this idea to pronounce the American English R as good as I could. And eventually I just got really sick of it because it puts in so much effort and you have to put in so much effort. And then I turned lazy and I just completely adapted their kind of pronouncing stuff because it was so lazy and it was so easy. And then people started to like it and I was like, fine, I'm going to stick with that.
Right? I would love to hear your impression of an American accent. I think that would be awesome. Can you try an American accent?
I can't even remember how it goes. I can't.
You sound like Americans.
Yeah, you sound like Americans. That's what you sound like. But the thing is, then I mix it up with the British, and the British have like this very heavy way of pronouncing things.
Right, that's awesome. I love that.
I love you.
Oh God, that was
Nice.
That was good. Yeah, that was a good impression.
I've got a question that David can answer for you here.
Okay.
Telltale, have you ever taken any illegal drugs?
No, this guy is the straightest guy I have ever met in my entire life.
Yeah, I have. I have taken illegal substances. In fact, I don't want to, out anybody or anything. That
Acid was pretty fun.
with me. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what our like best drug experience was with David. It was
Candy
the first time I
flipping?
ever met him. Yeah, it was amazing.
Hey, FYI, drugs are bad.
Yeah, don't
You
do
should not
drugs,
do
kids.
Drugs are bad, okay?
They fuck people up. Okay, really, you really shouldn't do drugs. But
Unless you're with David, then it's fine.
yeah,
Find David.
you're welcome for that, David.
I don't quite understand that mindset though. Like you can't tell people, yeah, drugs have this kind of effect and drugs have that kind of effect. But if you go and say you're not supposed to do drugs, that's the very first thing people do.
Right.
Well,
Yeah,
what are
you
gonna
know-
tell people? You don't want to tell people to do meth. You want to tell them not to do meth. But if you
But,
tell them
you
not
know,
to, they're
Well,
going to do
yeah,
it.
but you could tell them, you can do math and then you fuck up your life within one time.
That's
so how
true.
about you just try something else,
Well, here's the thing.
Marijuana, LSD, MDMA.
There are
Those are
some
good.
drugs that don't fuck your life up like that. I have had experience with all drugs, basically. And the majority of drugs, in fact, I have to say all drugs are not good. And in my psychology classes, actually, they specifically said exactly what Ethan said. You should not say it's fun and then say don't do it. It is not fun. It fucked my life up, genuinely.
It's a slippery slope. Like,
Yeah.
there's the fun one. Everybody talks about gateway, this, that, and the other, but the reality is,
Yeah.
you get into an environment where things become available, more things start becoming available, and you
Yeah.
really got to be careful where you go.
On the other hand, there are some drugs that I don't view as bad. Alcohol is not as bad as some others, although I don't drink and I don't like alcohol personally. Weed is not as bad. LSD is not as bad as others. But,
Moderation's the key.
yeah, the problem is when you get into drugs, moderation basically becomes impossible, when you get to a certain point. And so I would discourage use of meth, of heroin, of any of that stuff. In fact, I would discourage use of all drugs. But if you're going to do a drug, which most people do some drug of some sort, even alcohol, either make it alcohol or weed. That would be my suggestion.
So, Telltale, somebody else asks, I'd like to know what questions to ask the JW I see standing on the street corners of my city. Questions that would stump them.
Okay, well, I got a funny little story about that, actually. I was just they have this little setup next to like my work. And so I get in my car and I see him there talking to somebody. I was like, the gall of these people, right? So I roll my window down and I yelled out my window, don't believe them. Don't believe anything they say.
Which helps them.
Yeah, that probably just fed their persecution complex, actually. So be courteous, be nice, be kind. Don't say anything that will make them feel persecuted, because it just makes them go deeper into it. I would suggest asking. All right. I would suggest asking if they knew what the Tetragrammaton was, which is the 4 letters that represent God's name in the Bible, and then ask what it translates to, because they know that it translates to YHWH. Everybody knows that. And then ask them how they got to the name Jehovah, because there is no logical step there. It just got mutated and morphed over time, through different accents and languages until it ended up at Jehovah. And I don't know why they stuck to that. They know that it's not Jehovah. I mean, they even talk about it on their website. I don't know why they're sticking to it. So, well, they can't be Yahweh's Witnesses. Can't change their name, I guess. But anyway.
They've already registered the domain name for 10 years.
Yeah. I guess they could go by yw.org, right? But yeah, they're too deep in it now. They cannot back out easily. So
someone else speaking along the same lines, what happens when you are baptized? Because you were talking about that, saying you should never do it. And they want to know what happens, because I'm also not sure.
It's a titular distinction. If you get baptized and you leave, that's effectively like an automatic shunning in most cases, not in all. But if you're not baptized, then they treat you like a non-believer, which means they're not necessarily going to be as close to you as if you were baptized and in. This is for people planning on leaving. But yeah, you won't be like outright shunned or turned away from.
So in some cases, right. So if you get baptized and you leave, then their phrase is something along the lines of, you knew the truth, you know it's the truth, and you left anyways. That means you knew God in your heart, because elders won't make mistakes and just push you through baptism sometimes. That never happens. If you get baptized, then you knew it was the truth, and you know now, and you're just pretending not to, and you turned away. So that's what happens. You get disfellowshipped, and that's the end of it. You lose all your family and everything. But if you're not baptized, in some cases, they don't shun you, like David was saying.
Well, that's why it was okay for his mother to go out to dinner with me, even though I was equally as much of an atheist as he was. It was fine for his mother to go out with me because I had never been in the truth.
Right.
And he had. So she couldn't be seen with him, an atheist, but she could be seen with me, an atheist. The only difference was the baptism and the disfellowship.
By the way, we got about 7 more minutes. Also, something I want to point out, they say the truth. They say that, and it's a mind control, it's a manipulation tactic. They call it the truth. All the members call it the truth, the truth, the truth. It's just a way of cementing it in your mind that it is true. So anyway, that's one of their methods of brainwashing
the truth
people, I guess you could
trademark
say.
So
yeah, the truth trademark.
How do JWs feel about the Jews? I mean, Jesus was one. They're a group that uses Yahweh a whole awful lot. That was the question.
How do they feel about the Jews? That's an interesting question, actually. Growing up, they didn't. All right, so Mormons are, at least in their past, were very against black people and wouldn't let them be in the clergy, wouldn't let them be part of the church and all that other good stuff up until like 1973 or something. And Jehovah's Witnesses were the polar opposite of that. They were actually extremely inclusive, to the point where the founder said, in paradise, black people's skin will turn white. And that's kind of a social faux pas if I've ever heard one. But Anyways, yeah. So anyway, they were extremely inclusive. So we were taught to completely ignore race completely. We weren't supposed to, say anything about. I mean, this is my experience. Is that what you went through, David?
Yeah, in our 85% white demographic area that we both lived in. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, that's true. We did. Well, anyways, so with the Jews, they didn't have any. They were completely indifferent. They didn't consider them God's current people. They consider them God's past people, but we try to convert them just like anybody else. So I guess that's a plus, right? I mean, they're.
I don't think you can count that as a plus when you also say, "Oh, don't worry, your skin will turn white when you get into paradise."
That was fucking crazy. I know that was fucking crazy.
It doesn't matter how not racist you're trying to be. If you are setting whiteness as the ideal there.
Well,
obviously everyone wants to be white.
That was in 1900 though.
Yeah, I don't care.
I agree. It's fucked up.
They don't change that's the problem. They don't change their shit. They don't update.
They do update, and they call it New Light, and that's its own thing. New Light is basically where they completely change a policy, like top to bottom. Like they say, "Oh, we just realized that 1914, nothing's going to happen. Like we're not going to paradise anytime soon. That generation's dead. So what do we do here?"
Speaking
of
which,
they do this. Yeah, what is it?
But you mentioned earlier that in 1919, according to the witness, Jesus examined the organization. Have you touched on all the new light that's happened since then that really makes one question whether that would have been the most ideal upstanding organization at that time?
I have a little bit. Do you have some?
Not in the next 3 minutes.
Okay, all right. Let me give a couple. All right, so that was in 1919, right? Within 10 years, they claimed in 1925, they made another end of the world prediction, and they were serious. All of their members sold all their shit and started going and pioneering, and they would get people's attention by driving around these giant ass cars with big horns on them.
Pioneering.
Yeah, and the people, they'd have a phonograph in the back that would be playing out the horn on the top of the car, for example. So that's how they get your attention. They'd even carry phonographs to the door, set the phonograph down, and play this record from the Watchtower Society. That's pretty familiar. I mean, they do that with YouTube videos now, or jw.org videos. They pull them up and they play them at the door. So that's the first thing. That was 1925. They did another in 1922. Not in that order. Anyway, in 1933. Okay, so 1916, Charles Taze Russell, the founder, dies on Halloween night. 1933, there was between those years, there's a big power struggle between, is it going to have a president or is it going to have a governing body? Because Charles Taze Russell was the president, I believe. So eventually, at this point in the teens, 20s, and early 30s, they were known as the Bible students, which still exists. The Bible students still exist to this day. And in 1933, Rutherford, I don't remember. I just know him as Brother Rutherford. Isn't that funny? Brother Rutherford, because that's what I always heard from the magazines. Anyway, Brother Rutherford, whatever his real name was, he kind of did a hostile takeover. Yeah, the judge. He did a hostile takeover. He's a serious alcoholic. And that's when they banned beards, and that's when they became Jehovah's Witnesses. By the name Jehovah's Witnesses. So there was all kinds of corrupt stuff in that past. It is insane. And
to me, it's
one
not
more
major doctrinal changes. It's just stuff like vaccinations used to be on par with blood transfusions. You couldn't have those.
No blood transfusions. That's a good point.
Even the incremental changes. It's just how is that new light?
I know. No vaccines.
That was my point. They don't change enough.
No vaccines. No medications. What was it? No blood transfusions. Thousands of people have died because of all this stuff.
When I had my daughter, when we had our daughter, I refused blood transfusions because he was super against it. He was out of the church at that time. He was already disfellowshipped, but it was still that deep in his head that he
It's fucking
he
insane,
didn't want me
isn't
to
it?
take blood. He got a lot of shit at the hospital.
Yeah, it's insane. But there was one more thing I wanted to touch on. I'm trying to remember what it was now. Oh yeah, John Cedar's channel. I was talking about his channel, right, on the last stream, and when it cut out, and I didn't get to finish what I was saying about him. So this is what I'll wrap up with. John Cedar's channel, he does great work. He's a great guy, I think, but he's kind of a dick. I don't really like him personally. Yeah, he's a dickhead. My channel is just a little bit smaller than his by a few thousand subscribers.
Which is funny because I think your channel's too aggressive.
Really? Oh yeah, he's super laid back and everything on his channel, but he doesn't communicate with the community. He doesn't doesn't talk to anybody. And he's always pushing his book, and that drives me fucking crazy. Pushing your book like that shit. Look, mention it once, okay? Mention it once.
Hey, if you took the time to write a book, I bet you'd be pretty fucking...
Yeah, but 3, 4, 5 times on every appearance he makes, that just drives me up a wall. Like, so I think he's a dick. I think he does a lot for the community, but he's a dick.
2 things. They don't refuse vaccines anymore. That was a thing they changed. And second thing, somebody asked why Jehovah's Witnesses don't celebrate Halloween specifically, but why don't they celebrate holidays, I guess.
Okay, well, this will be the last question, then we're wrapping it up.
That was a good one.
Why don't they celebrate holidays? They have a different reason for every holiday. Halloween is actually, it seems pretty intuitive. It's all about demons, and it's got pagan roots and all that other good shit. But to me, it's just fun. You know, I used to sit in the dark at my house because you have to have all the lights off, because you know, if you have any lights on, then kids will come to your door, and then you got to tell them you don't do it.
We used to move book study into the back room so they could have the lights off in the front.
So my mom worked and my dad slept all the time. So it was just me sitting in the dark. Couldn't watch TV because it was only Halloween shit on. So it was like some of the worst times of my life, just sitting in the dark, doing nothing. But now it's the best holiday, one of the best, Christmas being the best. I think Halloween's a close second.
Yeah.
And then
since I got my hooks in him.
Yeah, she got her hooks in me. Anyway, it's just fun, you know? Like, fuck them. It's just fun. So anyway, they don't celebrate birthdays because the only times it's ever mentioned in the Bible, someone gets their head cut off. All right, so that's 2 of them. Then I'm not going to go through all of them. Let's see. Then there's Valentine's Day. That is a whole thing about Saint Valentine, and it's a Catholic Church thing. Then there's Easter. That's got its roots in pagan origins. There's a reason for everything. They'll always find a reason to bitch. So anyway, all right, Katie, I'm leaving.
I'm going to get her to...
All right. We're getting Alpha Force Zero to say bye to the stream. Come here.
I don't want to.
Oh, sure you do. Come on.
Okay, fine.
Okay, this is Alpha Force Zero. She introduced herself earlier. Anyway, all right, guys. Thanks. I will talk to you later.
Bye. Was